The Democratic Majority Leader is going to stand up for the institution. They continue to wave this threat over the minority, and our anticipation is that this is designed to ratchet up the pressure on Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema, who've made it clear that they think the way the Senate functions should not be changed. And so we admire their courage. I expect it will be tested over the course of this two-year period. In the meantime, I would advise the majority to look for things on a bipartisan basis that we might do working together. A good example of that was the way we did 5 COVID bills last Congress in a time of divided government with a Republican majority.
As the leader points out, it seems like the Democrats have chosen, instead of working on bipartisan bills, to try and find as many partisan things as they can do. They continue to report bills from the House over to the Senate that they know don't have bipartisan support, whether that's elections or whether that's guns and all the issues surrounding that, or whether it's the issue of immigration, which I think, too, is coming to the forefront now. And on that point, I would simply say that the president, when he first got to office on the first day, immediately revoked the emergency declaration with respect to the border. And since that time, things have deteriorated quickly. They've relaxed enforcement. They have quit building the border wall. They have, quit deportations. There are so many areas where, when it comes to the border, this current administration is making much worse what's going on down there. And as a consequence, you're seeing all kinds of unaccompanied minors, asylum seekers, people at the border. It's a very, I think, unsafe and chaotic situation down there that will only get worse if they continue down the current path. It strikes me, at least, that the policies that were in place before, when the previous administration was in office, it kept stability at the border. There was order, there was discipline. And if that isn't restored very quickly, this thing is going to continue to unravel. And evidence of that is that the administration, as I mentioned, when they came in, they rescinded the emergency declaration, and yet now they are sending FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, to the border, which suggests they also recognize that this is an emergency. I hope that on the leader's point, there are enough Democrats who recognize the value of what the Senate contributes, the importance of giving the minorities a voice in the process, of the minority party, I should say, and of making sure that there is at least some attempt to cooperate and find common ground in bipartisanship. That is the essence of the Senate. That's the way the Senate was designed. That's the way it's worked throughout history. And blowing up the legislative filibuster in order to accomplish some short-term agenda will only backfire and create a lot of long-term pain for the country and for the party that does it. It is a mutually assured destruction in terms of the path, and I hope the Democrats will think better of
it. The tax and spend Democrats are back. President Biden has just signed into law a $1.9 trillion spending bill, and now the White House and President Biden are talking about raising taxes. This would be the most significant tax-raising piece of legislation in the last 28 years. Now, at home in Wyoming, I don't talk to anybody that says, hey, I hope they raise my taxes. Republicans, conservatives, people are not for raising taxes, and the Biden administration is talking about doing it many ways, raising the tax rates on income tax, raising the taxes on long-term investment income, resuscitating the death tax. And then, they want to spend more money in the IRS to hire more IRS agents to look into you and your taxes and your business dealings. Well, they say they want to raise all of this money under the guise of infrastructure. But infrastructure, the way that the Democrats are using the phrase, is just code for their climate agenda. I chaired the committee last time in the Senate, the Environment and Public Works Committee. We did real infrastructure, roads, bridges, highways, ports, dams, things that contribute to the economy and to communities and for good jobs. That, to me, is infrastructure, not what the Democrats are talking about now. Now, I thought we could work together in a bipartisan way, but there was a hot mic moment yesterday with the Secretary of Transportation and one of the Senate Democrats, which made you really think, are they really wanting to work with us? But it sure sounds like they don't. You know, they're talking about the climate agenda with rules and regulations and mandates, making it harder for businesses to work and for people to get hired and economies to get stronger. So it's about raising taxes for them, and it's not about infrastructure as I know it, but it's no surprise. Republicans are not going to partner with Democrats on the Green New Deal or on raising taxes to pay for it.
So this week, Democrats filed S-1 in the Senate. Much like H.R. 1, it's a partisan effort, frankly, to take over the elections in a way that sort of drives off a partisan cliff. It takes the Federal Elections Commission, which has always been evenly divided, and turns it into a 3-2 commission, with the third vote on one side being determined by whoever's elected president. It requires ballot harvesting in every state. Taxpayer dollars to candidates for Congress. If you can raise a dollar from a small contributor, you can get $6 from taxpayers to match that dollar. So if you get $100,000 raised somehow, suddenly you've got $700,000, almost all of which is money that would have gone to other taxpayer purposes rather than to politics. And in addition to that, it sets one standard for congressional redistricting for the whole country, and one umpire, one ultimate referee for that one standard becomes the D.C. Circuit Court. It is everything Democrats have tried to do for 20 years, and in some ways things that Democrats never even thought about mentioning before, like a partisan Federal Election Commission.
Folks, let's make no bones about it. There is a crisis at the border. This is not just a big problem. This is a crisis at the border. And a number of my Senate Democrat colleagues acknowledged that in the Senate Armed Services Committee this morning, that we have a crisis at the border. The number of unaccompanied minors has tripled at the border over the past 2 weeks. And not only is it a heartbreaking humanitarian issue, but after wearing the uniform of our nation for over 23 years, I see this as a national security issue. Now, a lot of folks will just think it is people from Latin America that are coming across our border, folks from Mexico coming across our border. But folks, that's not just it. We have China engaging heavily in our southern hemisphere. China, Russia, Iran, all investing in the Southcom area. And we heard the Southcom commander, Admiral Fowler, speak to that this morning, that we have transnational criminal organizations that are exploiting our situation at the border, engaging in nefarious activities, whether it is Chinese money laundering, whether it is human trafficking, you name it, exploiting our open border. So, folks, it is time to get over the partisan bickering about whether this is a crisis or not, acknowledge that we have an issue, and make sure we are pushing back and securing our border. We cannot allow transnational criminal organizations, as well as our adversaries, to exploit these conditions any longer.
I came up here 2 years ago after being governor of Florida for 8 years. In 8 years, we cut taxes almost 100 times. We paid off a third of our state debt. We had record funding for education, for the environment, things like that. And we added 1.7 million jobs. Raising taxes is not going to help anybody in our country. If you look at what the Biden administration is doing now, whether gas prices are up, inflation is up, and the latest is going to raise taxes on people across this country, whether it's income tax, debt tax, gas tax. You saw the Transportation Secretary say he's open to raising the gas tax or taxing electric vehicles. None of that's going to help families. But what's going to do is hurt all the families that are on fixed income, the lower income families, when you see gas prices up, taxes up, and inflation up. So
like all of us, we're going to all fight to make sure we can take care of every family, especially the families on fixed income and low-income families in this country.
Leader McConnell.
Yeah.
So we know you're opposed to eliminating the filibuster. Is there any opening to filibuster reform, like enforcing the talking filibuster, the requirement that a senator has to be on the floor?
It's not broken, and it doesn't need to be fixed. Our Democratic friends used the filibuster frequently in the last Congress. They were in the minority in the Senate. They took advantage of, for example, killing Senator Tim Scott's police reform bill. I didn't react to that by saying, okay, we'll change the rules of the Senate to get our way. It's not broken, and it doesn't need to be fixed. This is a solution in search of a problem. It is not a problem that the Senate stops bad ideas or negotiates bipartisan solutions. That is the essence of the Senate.
The number of cloture votes has increased.
Leader McConnell, Javier Becerra is going to be confirmed very soon, possibly this week. Pro-life organizations are very concerned about that. Health and Human Services Secretary. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and your feelings?
Well, I'm not planning on voting for the nominee. I think he's uniquely unqualified for that particular position from a variety of different points of view. And I think his success is likely to be quite narrow.
Leader McConnell, what do you think about what Bernie Sanders said today was his intention to do transfer infrastructure through reconciliation? Your thoughts on that, especially after the hot mic moment with Senator Cardin yesterday, and then how would all this get paid for?
Well, Senator Barrasso was talking about that. I think the Trojan horse will be called infrastructure, but inside the Trojan horse will be all the tax increases that Senator Scott and others have been talking about. They want to raise taxes across the board. And the only way I think they could pull that off would be through a reconciliation process. They have one more of those available to them, and my suspicion is they will try to jam everything they can into that bill and call it an infrastructure bill, just like they tried to call the bill a couple of weeks ago a COVID bill, which had 1% for vaccines and 9% for health care and a whole lot of other things. So, yeah, I fully expect that's what they'll try to do. And that's because I don't think there's going to be any enthusiasm on our side for a tax increase.
Leader McConnell, would you support the Violence Against Women Act bill that the House is expected to pass on Wednesday?
Well, Senator Ernst, is she still here? Has been our leader on that issue, and if she were still here, I'd get her to answer your question. Thanks a lot.